Welcome back, MDL. I am Matt here with the rest of our admin team: Maxwell, Ryan, and Dan. Would you guys like to say hello?
Hey, what's
No,
going on?
I refuse.
Ryan refuses. That's okay. All right. So,
And just didn't say anything.
we are here with a bit of a different video. We're going to be going over a lot of mons that, maybe not a lot, but some of the most notable mons that did not get drafted this season in season 4, at least in the initial draft. They're all up for grabs come transaction time, which is sort of why we're doing this now. There were quite a few that surprised us that they didn't get drafted. So we'll go over those, and then maybe a few more weirder mons that we would have liked to see, or anything like that. So, and we're going to be coming out with this probably. We're recording this Friday night. This will probably come out on Saturday, so that you guys will be able to watch this and consume this and see kind of what we think about these mons before transactions, which will probably be happening Sunday. So let's jump right into it. Let's start with tier 1. I think there's a small cluster of Pokemon that we were really surprised did not get drafted in tier 1. The first of which, let's say, is Galarian Moltres. Ryan, you are our resident Moltres user, given your team last season. What do you think about Moltres and the fact that it did not get drafted?
It's mostly surprising because what was added, Moltres does really well into. I actually feel like Galarian Moltres probably will have, on average, a better team matchup than I did when I was running it to finals. Like, the reality is that most of the mythicals we added have a secondary psychic typing, or a lot of them do, or are just psychic types. So a bunch of really good top tier psychic types got added to the league. You know, things like Mew, Necrozma, Jirachi, Ventini, and Moltres beats them all pretty hard. Yeah, you can tech berries and whatever, but it's if you build a team around it, that thing can absolutely nuke those mons. And the fact that it went undrafted is a little surprising, because to me, on paper, it looked like one of the better tier 1s just with the new stuff, you know? Not to mention, it made finals last season and also did well the prior season with Toxic. So, the thing has a pretty good showing and record, and most people think it's a top mon. So I'm just surprised that it is still on the board with all of those factors being considered all at once.
Yeah, especially, I mean, I think you make a really good point about the extra psychic types, but I mean, even aside from those, it's one of the top mons, I think, probably on a Series 9, Series 7 and 9 tier list in general. It's one of those mons that I would fit into that category of difficult to stop, even when you know exactly what it's going to do, and you do know pretty much what it's going to do every time. It's rather one-dimensional.
It
but
runs the same thing,
right? But that's not always a problem for it, just because of how powerful it is. So, yeah, it's this was one of the even compared to the new big mythicals, this should have been one of the top mons to go, I think, and to see it just get undrafted completely is pretty surprising. How do you guys think that it would fit on anybody's team currently?
Oh, we didn't ask that question beforehand. Oh no.
Yeah, I can actually think of a couple teams. So off the top of my head, I think Burst's team could really use another ice weakness, so it could functionally fit on that team.
That's true.
And Raz's team, who needs Metagross and Tornadus, so it could fit on that team. But in all seriousness, I do think Hector has a team where Moltres could functionally fit, where his current tier 1s are G-Max Blastoise, and he's got the Togekiss as well, which are both really solid redirectors and potential setup options. But I think you could use something that's a bit more power next to that redirection.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
agree, actually.
And honestly, other than that, there's really not. Since tier 1, other than tier 4, is the lowest number of mons that you could have drafted at 2. I just think preface all these tier 1s with there are new toys people want to try.
Yeah.
But other than that, with only 2 slots and seeing what the teams have in them 2 slots, there's really not any team that really would appreciate or be able to use Moltres efficiently, other than maybe Ryan, because he already has the Raichu, but I think Celesteela is working in that slot a little bit better for his team comp. But
Yeah.
really, I don't think any other team can really utilize it at the moment.
I think that's fair. I think if you're looking to snatch up something like Galarian Moltres right now, you got to have a long-term plan to make it work with more transactions down the line, which is a completely legitimate strategy. If you and you probably want to take Moltres first because it's just such a huge, like, if that's the beginning of your plan, you're centering your whole thing around that, and it's such a huge valuable mon that you probably want to pick that up first. So,
Well, honestly, maybe Dark. Urshifu, I know, doubles as his fighting type, but I mean, he has the Pincurchin. He has a Fungus. I mean, maybe that.
yeah,
Yeah,
possibility.
it can fit some teams. I mean, Hector has Comfey, like literally has Comfey, which is the standard.
Yeah, somehow
the
we missed
standard
that
prop.
when we talk about Hector. Yeah,
I
would be
didn't miss
fantastic.
that. I thought it was implied, but apparently, nope. Anyway,
Yeah, I might like to see the Moltres replace the Togekiss on this team. As good as Togekiss has been in this league and in VGC, it looks kind of good there. You got both Comfy and the Togedemaru, so that's pretty nice. I also like it with the Frostlass, like Ryan had last season. So
yeah,
might be
I
pretty
really
good.
liked Frostlass Moltres. It was really strong.
Absolutely. So that might be like the one team that maybe Dark. Those guys might be a couple of teams that could use it without changing around too much. I think the same could probably be said for the next mon that we have on the list. This stupid little ice horse right here. I don't know if it like fits super well on anybody's team. I haven't taken a super close look at how our teams might handle the horse, but this one I think is Ice Horse is the one that I think I was the most surprised did not get drafted, mostly because it was fucking banned last season. Like, I thought for sure, like, yeah, people want to try out the new toys, but I thought for sure somebody's going to look at the horse and go, like, that thing's back on the board, I'm taking it, especially after, like, a bunch of the new mythicals and legendaries got picked over. By the time you got to, like, round, 10, 11, 12, whatever, they're pretty much already, or not round, but the 10th, 11th, 12th pick, most or all of them were already gone. So, like, you just start with a Glastrier. That'd be kind of nuts, especially that late into the draft. We don't need to go into like what the horse does. We all know what horse does. Horse kind of horse. But that's it's definitely the one I was most surprised by. What do you guys think?
Honestly, Burst team would actually love this. His Trick Room option now is a little bad. Not gonna lie, it's Snorlax and Copperajah.
Whoa, hold on.
Hang on.
You just said bad and Copperajah in the same.
Oh,
breath.
okay. Listen. Snorlax needs to be set up to really be good, and Copperajah is a low tier mon. Listen, hang on. He has a rain mode in Politoed, and he has a Trick Room setter that is slower than Copperajah. Or slower than Glastrier.
Yeah. No, Burst could just like drop one of his tier 1s. It doesn't really matter which. He can just pick whichever one he doesn't feel like having.
Honestly, I think that's the only team right now that could use Glastrier.
I'd agree. But potentially, I think Jess's team could actually. But that's the only other one that sticks out as being a potential Glastrier possibility. And if I were her, I wouldn't.
Yeah, I was very close to picking Glastrier in the second round, because I picked Zamazenta in the first round, and then Glastrier was right there, and then I just played the VBA season with Glastrier, I have it in the MGU, and I just finished the BTL season with it. Please don't make me just beat people with Glastrier again. So I audibled into a different ice type with Curum, but it should have been taken. That thing is so good. Like it might have been better for my team building it out from there. I just didn't want to have it in a fourth league.
Yeah.
I
I
probably would have
will
done the
say,
same thing.
I did talk to a few coaches about Glastrier, like very candidly. A few coaches commented that they noticed that, especially early on in the draft, a lot of top tier steel types were leaving, and that steel was like very popular because both Melmetals were drafted. Steelo was drafted early. Zamazenta is not a steel type. Genesect. So like Metagross. So a lot of people were saying that with people having an Excadrill, with a lot of people noticing that there were really good tier 1 steel types, some people were scared off, I think, a little bit. Which is fair, but, like, it's a Glastrier. Like, who cares? Who cares about steel types if you have a Glastrier? Just chilling Nay and outboost them,
I think that may actually be a good argument for burst dropping Rillaboom instead of the Landorus, just to keep the Landorus around for extra coverage against opposing steel types.
Extra steals, yeah.
Right.
I'd agree.
And I think if he were to do that, this actually kind of reminds me a little bit of my draft in the High Roller League, because some of our tier 1s came in the later rounds. The draft was constructed a little bit weird, so I ended up picking up Glastrier later after I had taken Caparaja, and then later I used a transaction to swap Caparaja out for something else. So I can totally see him doing that. That could be part of a more not a super long-term plan, but the next transaction swap out Caparaja for something else. I don't really know what else he would want, but there's probably plenty of good options. So that might be something for him to try. Any final thoughts on the horse?
You should have believed me when I said it was going to be there round 8 for you.
I didn't. Can you blame me though?
No, I cannot. I'm surprised. I'm as surprised there as it not getting drafted here.
Yeah. Indeed, I will agree with that. Okay, next up on the list, we've got Clefairy and Clefable. This is one of those, a couple of those mons that are surprising to see undrafted given their history in the league. I think this league is especially high on Clefable, but, Clefairy is no slouch. It's still a good mon. What do you guys think about Clefairy and Clefable? Why'd they go undrafted? Should they have gone undrafted?
So first, I think it's less about those two mons and more about what was added in the lower tiers. Like, I have Electivire, someone has Magmar, Magmortar, Electabuzz. They're just lower tiered redirectors that do other things. Granted, Clefairy, Clefable might be some of the best, but are you really going to risk one of your two tier 1 slots just for a redirector,
Right. I think that's pretty spot on. That also makes me wonder if we tiered them too high, given all the other redirection around. And also given the power creep that, not only, like, there was a lot of additions this season. Not only were there a lot of low-tier redirectors, so you could take some powerful shit up top and then still get something like a Mr. Mime or a Togetic or a Electivire later on. But it's...
I feel like there also just aren't a lot of setup tier 1s, Like, I really like Clefable, Clefairy if you have a mon that, like, wants to click Nasty Plot or SD turn 1.
Yeah.
Like, it would make sense on a team like Jess's, where she has Mew, where you get the Psychic Fairy type redirector, and then you can click Nasty Plot SD for free. But she has Togetic, which is, like, pretty close in, like, value to, I'd say, those two. So it makes sense they went undrafted, because I think the one team where that makes a lot of sense is your tier 1 didn't go for it and went for a slightly lower tier option that has a few more weaknesses, but also, will do the role fine.
I think maybe, given what you just said there, I might actually be a little bit more surprised that Clefairy went undrafted than Clefable, because you're right, there's a lot of stuff that in tier 1 that doesn't need to or want to set up, but Clefairy's great next to something that can just hit the field max and go for nukes. Like, Clefairy Porygon Z is a a classic combination. Not that anybody has Porygon Z, but something like maybe Cinderace or something. It's probably better with a special attacker since you're a fairy type, but that's the idea. So final question on these two: were they tiered too high?
No.
See, I don't think so. I
don't
just think
so.
they got hit by the byproduct of what was added. Because if they were lower tier, 100% they're both getting picked up probably in round 2, not even round 3 where most tier 2s go. I think they would 100% been scooped up in round 2.
I could even see a late round 1, honestly. Like if you're in a
Yeah.
spot like Anthony Rasburst, I would have definitely considered just a round 1 Clefable and then pick 2 tier 1s that I thought would get back to me on wheel.
I think that's fair. All right, next up, Incineroar. This one is a little bit...
It's bad.
It should have been in tier 2.
You didn't even let me finish saying it was a little bit of a controversial one. I don't think it should be tier 2. I think it's definitely good enough to be tier 1.
No way.
I can't shake the feeling that it's still on the board because it's just not that flashy. Even if we didn't have all this new shit like Marshadow and Melmetal and whatever, like, it's not really that interesting, but it's super solid. It's the best pivot in the game. It's very versatile. You can use it offensively too. It's just
Listen.
really good.
It got drafted last season, but it shouldn't have. And Jessica will tell you that. She shouldn't have drafted it.
Oh, sure. I agree with that.
It got
that
drafted
thing,
in season 2, and it shouldn't have.
that thing will probably never get drafted in tier 1 in this league.
Oh, I might do it.
Okay, but you also think Tapu Finney's busted.
Fine, I'll draft both of them.
I mean,
I don't know.
That's a good score. I won't be mad.
Not so much that it's just not flashy. I just don't think it provides what teams need in that support slot and also in a tier 1 slot. Like, your tier 1s need to be either the best support mon in the game or just an offensive threat or a setup threat. And as you see, most tier 1s that were drafted are those. There's only a few tier 1s that got drafted that are even support mons. You look at maybe like a Tornadus Eye or... well, shit, I think that might be the only one. Maybe a Togekiss, but not really. Everything else is an offensive threat.
Oh, Indeedee.
Indeed,
for sure.
yes. But I don't think you can risk high offense in tier 1 for an Incineroar.
I think that's
yeah.
fair.
I tend to agree with that. Well, and the thing is like, I'm looking at the board and I'm like, okay, I want an Intimidate Fire type, and there's like Arcanine there, and Torracat, and lower tiers. Like there's lots of there's some okay other Intimidate options in this draft, and we've moved down a lot of Intimidate too. Obviously, Incineroar is more than just Intimidate, but to me, that's one of its distinguishing factors is it's a good Intimidate mod. It's
Intimidate, Fake Out, Snarl, Parting Shot. That's all it is, and I don't think that's good enough for tier 1.
Oh, that's not all it is. It can.
No, I'm saying that's all it offers outside of being an Arcanine, is what I'm saying. Well, Arcanine gets Snarl.
If you draft Persian A and Arcanine on the same team, you get all of those things. It's awesome.
And more, yeah, and more.
Yeah, and more, honestly. And Justified Beat Up. Let's go.
Yeah,
And Icy Wind.
yeah, just draft those two and throw Incineroar in the trash where it should belong.
Yeah.
All right. Next up, this is our last tier 1. We're talking Cinderace. Maxwell, you want to take this one for us?
Yeah, so this isn't one that I'm honestly surprised didn't get drafted based on what was available. This is one I'm surprised that didn't get drafted based on its history in MDL. Jessica had it for 2 seasons, performed very, very well. It was the all-star for both of her drafts, and then Dina had it last season. Again, probably one of the main all-stars of her drafts. It just has a very strong history in this league for doing very, very well. And it is one of those just, hey, it hits the field, it has immediate offense kind of mons. And I'm honestly just surprised it didn't go. For those reasons, not so much what the mon offers, just its history.
I think that's fair, yeah. I was... I think that's probably the reason that I was initially surprised it didn't get drafted, but... yeah, the more I thought about it, and frankly, the more I used it myself in the High Roller League, the more I kind of started to think, well, yeah, maybe it kind of makes sense it didn't get drafted. And I think that's if I'm being charitable here, I think maybe that's a testament to this league's ability to identify which mons are good and which mons are let's say suboptimal, given what's on the board, even when one of them has a really strong history in our league. So I think that makes sense. Any final thoughts on Cinderace or any other tier ones you think might be worth mentioning?
Yeah, yeah, I've been on the Cinderace's underwhelming in Tier 1 train for 3 seasons now, and everyone is just now catching up to it's underwhelming as a Tier 1. Like, it's not a Tier 2, obviously. Like, it's way too good for that. But there are better things you can be doing in Tier 1 than something that just loses to Intimidate.
Honestly, as far as the other tier ones, we didn't really mention it or anything, but only one of the 4 Urshifus got drafted,
Yep.
which is kind of surprising. But I mean, you could get those options elsewhere, and this is a max league, so max guarding in front of an Urshifu isn't a problem. But still, just kind of out there. There are still 3 Urshifus on the board.
Yes, indeed. All right, moving on to tier 2. Let's start off with a bang. Probably the most surprising one out of tier 2. I believe before we started recording, one of you guys said this was your biggest surprise as to what did not get drafted. So
Yeah, it was me.
that was you. All right, what is it? Let's big reveal.
Yeah,
What's the mon?
it's the 3 top tier Rotoms: Heat, Mo, and Wash.
Yes,
and
sir.
Wash even got moved down a tier. Rotom Wash has historically done very, very well. Dina really performed well with it last season, and it's just overall a super good mon. Same with Heat and Mo. They do offer some different utilities. Granted, you might want a better water, fire, or grass type, but these are 3 solid Pokemon. You got ally switches, you got different setup options. And honestly, they're just super versatile, getting some very unique type combos, and just offensive and supportive. They're just stellar mons, even with Wash getting moved down. I don't. I am very surprised. Not a single one of these got picked up. I know I was looking at one, but things in my draft just ended up going a bit differently. But honestly, you can probably slot these into any amount of drafts, or current teams, and I think it would be an easy transition.
I think Rotom Wash was still tier 2 last season. It might have been tier 1 the season before.
Yes, I'm sorry. Yes.
Yeah.
It performed really well though. I remember
Yes.
postseason
Yes.
because I remember fighting for potentially keeping Rotom in tier 1 at some point when we made that tier list. Yeah, I was looking at Rotom Wash for my own team. Had Raichu not come back around, I would have 100% grabbed Rotom Wash as my electric type for the season. Just because, levitating electric types are so good. And it's got such a great move pool and great bulk, and it's just, kicked ass, historically speaking.
Yeah, definitely. I wouldn't be that surprised if there were still 1 or 2 sitting here, but all 3, yeah, that's definitely very strange.
Yeah, it's very odd. I would say that for me, that was actually the most surprising thing of the draft. I think I even DM Maxwell and went, "How the fuck are all 3 Rotoms still here?"
Yeah, you did.
I recall messaging him that there's another mon that we're going to talk about in tier 3 that I also messaged people about, but we'll get there.
So let's jump over to everybody's drafts for a second.
Yeah, I was honestly looking at this, and there's not actually much here outside of maybe Noah, but Gyarados offers different things. Granted, when I played Noah, I knew I had to prep for physical attack, so I just max bulked my physical defense, and I ultimately won the game. But Intimidate is also super good for Noah, so I don't know if you really want to trade Gyarados out for maybe Rotom Wash. But other than that, I'm really looking through some of these, and there's not, surprisingly, a clear fit that would require just one transaction. You're good. You're going to have to change a few things, but like I said, I don't really see a clear, hey, Rotom fits here kind of comp here.
Yeah, there was just a lot of teams that were. A lot of the teams are just very tightly knit this season on the whole, I think. And in tier two, I don't really disagree with almost anyone's tier two options. I think the fact that we dropped some stuff from tier one last season definitely gave a lot of a lot of people a lot of second thoughts on what to grab in tier two, and that it's a much stronger tier on the whole.
Here is one team that I think Rotom Heat does need to be on, but it is going to take some finagling, and that's going to be Toxic. He actually doesn't have a fire type. And I know a lot of the steel types have been drafted, and your only answer to a real steel type is Diggersby and Heat Wave from Necrozma. Well, I guess Zapdos. But I don't quite know about those options. So maybe Toxic, but it would take some finagling. But other than that, man, I don't know.
Yeah, it's gonna be tough to fit it on his team. I think those three tier twos for him.
Yeah,
seem to be pretty
Ascav,
essential.
Diggersby, and Liepard are so good. Or no, Zapdos,
yeah.
Excalibur, Diggersby. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, speaking of Rotom Heat, I was kind of thinking maybe Charles, because he also doesn't really have a fire type. He's got Turtonator, but it doesn't count. It just might be a little bit awkward
Yeah.
with Jolteon. Not that they share any
You would-
weaknesses, but like
You would have to yeah.
You would have to drop the Celebi and then find something for Turtonator and or Jolteon.
Or both.
Yeah.
Turtonator sucks, so you can get rid of that. I don't care.
I think you might drop the Terrakion to keep like that Firewater Grass core in there.
Well, he's all Terrakion Weavile. I don't know about
Yeah.
that.
Oh, I know.
That's pretty-
I know.
That's pretty fucking strong.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah, just I surprised they didn't get drafted. Seeing the comps, there's not really a clear place for them to be, but them not being drafted is probably the reason these comps look the way they do.
Yeah, and I'm noticing a lot of people have electric types, and of course, Firewater Grass cores are something you always want to go for. Well, not always, but very frequently want to go for. So if you've already got an electric type and maybe a Firewater Grass core nailed down, it's going to be a little bit awkward to swap out one spot for a mon that covers kind of both of those things. Then like, what do you do with the other? That piece, that Firewater Grass piece that you still have that overlaps with Rotom, or like, what do you do with your other electric type? Kind of like what would Charles want to do with the Jolteon if he got Rotom Heat on here somehow? So it can be a little bit awkward trying to fit that on your team once the whole thing is built. Rotom definitely seems more like I'm building around this in my initial draft kind of mon.
Yeah, you have to have it in your initial draft, or it's just not going to go.
Yeah, I wouldn't say that's a hard and fast rule, but like I think it makes sense that that's
It
what
needs to
might be.
fit.
All right, next on the list of tier 2s is Nihilego. I don't think we need to spend too much time on this one, but I think Ultra Beasts in general, it's a little bit surprising when some of the more offensive ones don't get drafted. Nihilego was something that used to be a tier 1. I think it was still a tier 1 last season. It was definitely a tier 1 in season 2. I was going to ask Dan about this, but he just left. So
Yeah, it was in season 2. It was one of the reasons I didn't grab it with the I had Urshifu and Thundurus.
yeah.
It being in tier 1 is the reason I didn't grab it that season. But honestly, this mon hasn't performed in this league, which is surprising.
Yeah, it's a good mon.
But the 4 times weakness to ground might scare some people off because inherently you're going to build a team and you're going to have a ground weakness. So having a 4 times 1 with Nihilego hits hard, but its options are kind of limited sometimes. So that might be the reason. You do have to have it in mind when you go into draft just because of that 4 times weakness, though.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
And it's something that people are going to tech on their team a lot when you have something like that, especially when it has such a glaring weakness. You just need a physical ground type move, and you're kind of all good. Like it's like teching Heat Wave for a Kartana. It's the same.
Yeah.
same
Right,
kind of
and you've seen all the tier 1s or the top tier steel types drafted as well. Nihilego can't really do anything to those.
right.
So I do
Also,
think
I'm
just
gonna
this thing got
cough in
scared
three
away
teams.
from.
Coughs in 3 teams with psychic terrain too. That hurts a lot. Psychic
I
terrain was
just
the most
don't.
drafted
Yeah,
things.
I don't think the way these teams shaped up really boded well for Neolego.
Yeah, I think
No.
that makes sense. It's just sometimes it's surprising to see something that used to be in a higher tier, something that's obviously really powerful. Beast Boost is an insane ability. Nihiligo's, even just his stabs, hit a lot, like a surprising amount of things for super effective damage. And it's very unique too. Special rock types are not something you see every day, so it's an interesting mon. Not something I've used in draft myself, but it's definitely up there. I think it's a high value tier 2. That's the main reason I wanted to discuss it here a little bit.
Yeah, for sure.
If somebody's looking to get rid of a tier 2 and not really sure what to put in that slot, fuck it, Nihiligo might be a decent option. Not that that's going to happen a lot. I think a lot of people's tier 2s are pretty essential, but it's a good mon. Yeah. Next up is maybe the thing I was most surprised by in tier 2, and that is Gmax Lapras. When do you guys want to start us off here? No?
I'm not. Gmax Lapras, like, get another water type, man. Like, live your life and be better. Be better
okay,
than
so the problem,
setting Aurora Veil.
Yeah, the problem with Lapras in tier 1, tier 2, hell, even tier 3 is it's attached to a Lapras, which gotta love Lapras as a Pokemon, but competitively, if you're not maxing it, it's not doing anything.
Yeah, it's you definitely have to come to the battle assuming you're gonna max it or doing something weird with it, like, you know, Ice Shard, Weakness Policy proc or something. But then, you know, what does it even do after that? It's a weird mon, not very offensive, but very bulky. But definitely
has a fair amount of weaknesses.
I think part of the problem is that, like, to me, it's like so many of these teams are like, I'm gonna blitz you teams this season that like the kind of slower paced gameplay of something like Lapras is a little scary. But yeah, I mean, it is a mon that we bumped down from tier 1 to tier 2, and it is completely undrafted, which is definitely notable.
Yeah, I think it's the only mon we have in tier 2 that was kind of one of those experimental drops from tier 1 to 2. Stuff like Gmax Hatterene or like Porygon 2 Dusclops. You know, those all got drafted, and those were... I guess it would be this and Cresselia got drafted. So this, I think this would be really the only one. These are all mons that we were kind of thinking like, maybe kind of probably too strong for tier 2, but nobody fucking drafts them in tier 1, so let's knock them down and see what happens. We're seeing what happens with most of them, but not with Lapras, and I'm fully aware
that if this Gmax ability was attached to anything else.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a reason regular Lapras is in tier 4. It's not great. But it's a little bit unfortunate that that Lapras has to be the way that it is. Because it's a cool mon, it's a very cool Gmax effect, but I guess when the Gmax effect is that powerful, you kind of have to slap it on a shitty mon, but
yeah, and everybody, for what I've noticed so far, everybody's teching just for no reason, Brick Break and like Psychic Fangs.
Oh, yeah, live your life.
Yeah, it's I've definitely done that against a Lapras once or twice for sure. So fair enough. All right, next, just below the Lapras is Lucario. This, I think, might be our only redirector left in tier 2. Is that accurate?
Yes, and I think it's because people don't realize what it is.
Yeah, it is Inner Focus plus Follow Me, and that's kind of insane. You want a good mon to flowchart with? This thing is it, because guess what? Fake Out doesn't fucking matter. Put it next to a Ghost type max option, and you're good.
Oh, hell, it can max itself.
Yeah, you can just run Mental Herb on it. Like, Lucario, to me, like, is a tier 2 mon that you could have built your entire comp around in a big way, and no one did. Which
steel fighting, like, physical, special,
like
support.
It is pretty frail, but
it's frail, but it also has Justified, and like it has Inner Focus, and like I don't know. To me, like it's a mon that would be tough to work with, but I do feel like you could have built your entire draft around Lucario being maximized in use, and it could have been really scary. And actually, I think it would have been really good for a potential like a Galarian Moltres team. Like that's the kind of team where I could see that thing being really good to flowchart with.
Yeah, I think it's kind of like it's sort of like a shitty Indeedee.
Yeah,
it just
but
negates fake out and you can redirect freely. Of course, Indeedee has like there's other shit that comes with terrain that's great, which is why Indeedee's a tier above Lucario. But yeah, if you don't know about that niche that Lucario has, hell, you might even be confused as to why it's in tier 2 because that might seem weird. But it's a very, very powerful niche for sure. So if anybody's looking for an extra redirector, you got a slot open in tier 2. You like the sound of the inner focus, follow me. Lucario's here. It's waiting for you.
yeah, it's real good.
Ryan, would you like to tell me how sad you were to see Raikou go undrafted?
I was pretty depressed. I cried. There were tears shed. I screamed into the heavens. I mean, it makes sense that Raikou wasn't drafted this go around. None of the Rotoms were, and I think the Rotoms are generally better than Raikou. So, despite my standing of it, but I think Raikou has a good track record with me at least. I've piloted it to a 4th place and a 2nd place team. It has one of the best support move pools in the game. It can't be faked out. In a format where I actually think fake out's a lot better on the whole. I think having support that can't be faked out's really good. That's why I think the Psychic Terrain teams are all actually quite good as well. And it does a lot for what it is. And it can proc weakness policies, and it can set screens, and it can just be an offensive threat. Like, it has a level of versatility that is very difficult to match. I do think that in general the Rotoms are better, but Raikou is also much easier to slap onto a comp. Like, the Rotoms you have to kind of build around a little bit. Raikou can just be like, okay, I need a fast electric type supporter that's good, and Raikou is just sitting there as pretty much the best one. So, I mean, I'm not shocked it didn't get drafted because a lot of people went for kind of lower-ish tier electric types on the whole. Or really high tier, like they went tier 1 electric, But, yeah, it's an interesting mon to not see drafted after a couple pretty successful seasons with it, where I think it's shown its mettle pretty effectively.
Yeah, absolutely. I might even go out on a limb here and say that I like Raikou better than the Rotoms. Obviously, they offer wildly different stuff, but it's super solid. Great speed stat, immunity to fake out. Like you said, the versatility to me seems kind of unsuspecting. If you didn't look too deeply into it, you might just think, yeah, fast electric type, it attacks stuff and does some damage. It's cool.
Yeah, no, it's so strong.
Yeah, it can do a lot of stuff. It's cool.
Honestly, not having the dual typing, I think, is better for just a slap on. Hey, I need this. Here it is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, I mean, it was a slap on my team last season, and it still did well. Like, I wasn't wanting Raikou on my team last season very much, but like, it made too much sense not to just slap it on because it was just sitting there too good. I got it right round 6 or something, and was like, I don't know why this is here.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Next one is not something that I would say I was surprised went undrafted, but something I wanted to talk about a little bit, and that's Salamence. Salamence is not... It doesn't really have a strong history in MDL, I don't think. Last season, I think it also went undrafted the whole season, if I'm remembering correctly.
I don't think this thing has ever been drafted.
I think it got drafted in Tier 2. I want to say it was either Noah
maybe
or
season
Burst.
1?
No, it wasn't in the it wasn't in the deck season 1, I don't think.
Yeah, I think Noah had it because he had that and Sylveon.
Yeah,
but he didn't use it.
Right.
I think it came to like one game.
Yeah, and it's pretty unfortunate because it's very like it's just a different kind of a Gyarados. It has the same abilities. You've got Stab, Max Airstream with potential Moxie boosting. You've got you can do Intimidate.
Yeah, it's a
support
quad
sets.
to ice instead of a quad to electric.
Right. It's still got one of those double flying weaknesses. It's just a different one. And it's got a little bit of a different kind of support set. Usually with Gyarados, it's like maybe Taunt, Icy Wind, Thunder Wave kind of stuff. With Salamence, it's going to be more like Breaking Swipe, Tailwind.
And can be mixed.
Right? Yeah.
Which
You can.
I think Breaking Swept Tailwind is generally better than Gyarados support, but that's just me.
Yeah, and I guess the Tailwind makes me a little bit more surprised that it wasn't drafted this season as opposed to last season, because it is a transfer move, so it never had Tailwind in this league before, but now it does. And I think a solid high BST Intimidate Mon with Tailwind just sitting there on the board, I mean that's pretty solid, and it can do more than that too.
Latios. It just has less coverage, less bulk than those, and a 4x weakness, but it's very similar to Latios and Latios, which people seem to like on Maxwell and Ice teams based on PRs. So
yeah, for sure. Yeah, I just kind of wanted to highlight that a little bit because I didn't really see anybody talking about it in the server or anything, or at least I don't, not that I can remember. So
I don't think so.
Yeah, if you're looking for something like that, hey man, pick up Salamence. I would love to see it do work in this league. Speaking of something that does have league history, Maxwell, would you like to take us through Rhyperior?
Yeah, this is our tier 2 Cinderace. I haven't released this in a video. I might later, but I did a lot of work and compiled a history of MDL based on Pokemon, and Rhyperior is the top kill death ratio in the league. Every season it's been drafted, it's done phenomenal. Charles wreaked havoc with it in season 1. I don't remember who had it in season 2, but season 3, Jess used it decently well when she picked it up, and then Burst really utilized it to kind of make some runs into the playoffs. But honestly, I think just having all of those 4-time weaknesses and everything else, it really needs support. And I don't think a lot of teams were building around having the support needed for Rhyperior. But solid Mon, if you need a good Trick Room sweeper, hey man, Rhyperior can definitely do it for you.
Yeah, it's a little bit hard to afford it because a lot of the solid Trick Room sweepers you're gonna find down in tier 3. Hint, hint, Caparaja. But and it's a little bit easier to afford that because you have an extra tier 3 slot. So Rhyperior being a little bit more expensive there, and it can be a little bit of a turnoff, as well as those 4 times weaknesses like you mentioned. But it's also a little bit unique in that it's a ground type. You have stuff like Rhyperior and Mudsdale up here in tier 2 that I think maybe the only like real good solid Trick Room sweeping ground types. And ground types are definitely something that are very sought after on any team composition. So it's it's still very solid. I think it's probably, I would venture to say Rhyperior is more solid in tier 2 than Cinderace is in tier 1. Even though I agree that it is kind of the Cinderace in tier 2, given the way that we were talking about the Cinderace. But yeah, good Mon. If you're looking for a ground type, Lightning Rod, Trick Room Sweeper, it's here for you. Ryan, anything on Rhyperior?
Not a whole lot. I think you guys covered it pretty well. It's a very good mod. It's really hard to prep against a lot of the time. I remember when I was doing my playoffs prep for Burst, it was the thing that gave me the most trouble on his team by a pretty huge margin. If it has a good matchup in your team, Rhyperior is really, really tough to handle.
Mm-hmm. All right, next up is Inteleon. I put this on our list because Inteleon's something that I've always really liked. I don't know that I've ever drafted it before, but...
oh, yes, you have.
Oh, God, I did.
Yeah, you've drafted it.
I did, yes.
You drafted it twice and dropped it both times for Barraskewda.
Did I draft it again? Oh no, I wanted it in season 2, but I think it was sniped from me, and then I grabbed
Oh
it again.
yeah, I don't remember who took it, but yeah.
Well, anyway, it's I think it's a pretty decently high value tier 2. It has a super solid speed stat. It's kind of an annoying, like it's really annoying when like a fast offensive mon like this has access access to icy wind, kind of like Gengar, except it's even faster. Um, it
And a stab move to work around redirection.
Yeah, it can kind of throw a wrench into some of your plans, especially with all this redirection around. Like we
That was the reason I marked in agreement with you on our doc about these mons.
Yeah,
Literally just the fact there's so many redirectors.
right.
And Inteleon's like Inteleon and Duraludon are two of the only mons that just say no.
Yeah, it's really just those two and Barraskewda, and Barraskewda and Duraludon got picked up, but we got both Inteleon still here on the board.
Yeah,
And then the Gmax move. I mean, we know what that does. It's insane.
it is so strong. Yeah,
So to me, it's just like it's a mon that I've often found as somebody who likes to utilize redirection a lot. It's something that I find extremely annoying to prep against. For several different reasons. The snipe shot ignoring redirection is really rough. The icy wind also being a spread, just a really annoying spread move with how fast it is too. Really
It can set
annoying. And
screens.
then
yeah. It gets fast haze too, I think,
yeah.
and like
Yeah.
fast haze is so good. Really underrated. Like if you have a mon with fast haze, that's a really good thing to have in upper sleeve.
yeah, especially like if something's going for like a self proc priority move, like boom, fast haze done. I think we saw that in MBC one time. There was a Comfey procking a weakness policy Lapras, and the Gengar on the other side of the field just went haze done, and the Lapras never got a boosted move off. So yeah, you can totally do that with Inteleon. It's a very annoying mon. It can be very powerful and offensive in addition to being annoying. It's got a great toolkit. It's even got some decent coverage. Anything with special max airstream and max darkness, boosting your speed and your damage output with the special defense drops. That's pretty nice. I like Inteleon a lot. It's definitely a very good mon. Last tier 2 we've got here, Maxwell. You are a Tapu Bulu aficionado.
I am.
Why don't you take this one for us?
This is my mascot as well. Oh, I love Tapu Bulu. I think it's been kind of underappreciated by Game Freak. This thing needs either Play Rough or Grassy Glide. Give him one or the other, and this mon I think gets unlocked. But I used it very, very well last season. It gets a lot of things you're not gonna necessarily expect it to have. In the Glacier matchup, I used it to taunt a Dusclops, which you probably won't see very often. It gets solid. It's a solid offensive mon. It sets terrain. It really just comes down to his coverage. I'm not surprised it didn't get drafted, because as much as I love Tapu Bulu, I don't think it's honestly that good, especially with some of the new stuff that we added. It's just, it offers a lot that you're not thinking of, but there are better options for a grass type. I don't even consider this thing a fairy type, which is sad.
Yeah, that makes sense to me.
I think it's just offensive, and that's it. You can find neat little niches for it, like me using taunt, but other than that, it's offensive, and that's it. And I don't think as a grass fairy type, you really want Tapu Bulu.
I mean, if you're looking for a grass type in tier 2, though, it is probably one of the best ones. Not everybody, I think, had the luxury of taking it. Like Charles has a tier 2 grass type in Celebi, but he's also got Tapu Lele, so you don't really want clashing terrains like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it, that's just an example of somebody who like makes sense that you didn't take it. But looking at some of the other grass types in the tier, you've got like Virizion, Ludicolo, Ferrothorn, Rotom-Mow, which we talked about earlier. I think I think Tapu Bulu probably beats out most or all of those as just being a super solid grass type. partially because
I'd
some of
probably
those
take
need.
Ferrothorn, but yeah.
Yeah, I Ferrothorn is pretty nice, but I think part of the reason it beats out some of these like Ludi and Virizion kind of need a particular mode to make them go. But I like Tapu Bulu a lot as a grass type, and anytime there's like a powerful terrain setter like this that goes undrafted, that's at least a little bit surprising to me. It shows up on my radar for sure.
Yeah, I'm surprised you didn't honestly add Ludi just to shit on me and Burst, but hey ho.
We've done enough of that. If I want some more of that, we'll find it. Find some time. Any final thoughts on tier 2?
No, I don't
No.
think so. Tier 2 is one of those weird tiers where pretty much everybody got what they needed. Maybe Charizard G-Max, but other than that, everything that got drafted fits what the teams needed. So,
Yeah.
not really surprised. Maybe a Sylveon, but it doesn't have the greatest track
Sylveon.
record.
Yeah.
I love Sylveon. One of these days, I swear, I'm gonna roll a season with Sylveon. I haven't had the comp yet. Ugh.
Beautiful. All right. Moving on to tier 3. We're starting off with not one but a whole bunch of Pokemon. Tier 3 is typically where you're gonna find your main kind of bread and butter Trick Room setters. There's some in the higher tiers like you know Gothitelle, Cresselia,
Dusclops, Porygon.
Dusclops, yeah, up in tier 2. There's probably a couple more in tier 1, but I don't want to scroll over there. So, tier 3 Trick Room setters, we got a bunch of stuff left. We got stuff like Oranguru, Dusknoir, Jellicent, Gardevoir, Musharna, a couple of Lake Guardians left in Mesprit and Uxie. We got Reuniclus and all 4 of the Slowbros here. Yeah,
That's insane. That's actually the
my
crazy
God.
one to me.
yeah.
Like,
The water type versions of
those
these
are
are really
good.
good. Oblivious is an
Really
amazing
good.
ability for a
Yeah,
Trick Room setter.
Those 4 are probably the ones I'm most excited or most surprised about. I was honestly thinking of grabbing Oranguru next to Melmetal, just double Iron Bash, give me 4 of those, and that's fantastic.
Yeah.
But other than that, you got to think of these Trick Room setters maybe outside of Musharna, Mesprit, and Uxie, maybe Reuniclus, requires something else. Oranguru is not the slowest. Dusknoir, maybe not the bulkiest thing. I think it only has 50 HP. Jellicent is really good.
Jellicent's really good.
Gardevoir, again, not the slowest. I think it kind of comes down to that, and not a lot of teams this season are really built around Trick Room. There's only like maybe 2 or 3, me being one of them, but I was able to get Dusclops.
Right.
So I think that's the main reason these didn't get drafted, because they are known to set Trick Room. But Burst did really well with Mesprit, showing that it is very versatile, and it gets coverage like crazy. But the Slowbro, Slowking, water types in particular, they should have been drafted, even if not just to set Trick Room. They are offensive monsters as well.
At least
Jessica,
With 3 Psychic Terrain teams, I do not understand how one of the slows did not get drafted.
yeah,
Like,
I mean, even if you just look at
Slowking and
Slowbro,
Dini, yeah,
it
Slowking
gets
and Dini
belly drum,
so
and
good.
it's crazy. Yeah.
Yeah, Slowbro is really good. Like, God, yeah, those.
Hey, I mean, if we want to talk about teams that might be able to utilize some of these,
Any
I
team that
think-
doesn't already have a good Trick Room mode.
yeah, I mean, I think Toxic would actually do well with really any of these psychic type Trick Room setters. Doesn't have to be one of the slow boys, but it certainly can be. Oranguru and Reuniclus could work fine there if he wants to do that. But this is one of the main issues I had with his team. Even though I love the team, you absolutely need a secondary Trick Room setter, and one of these tier 3s is going to be one of the ones to go with if you're going to go in that direction, which I think you absolutely should.
Yeah.
Like the
honestly, Anthony's team as well. Is Meowstic male the one with Prankster?
It gets Prankster Trick Room. It's -5 priority instead of like -6 or some bullshit.
Anthony could use one of these.
Potentially, yeah.
I don't disagree with that.
It's hard to know. I mean, I was drafting with him, so I can like I have a sense of what all of these things are here for. So it's hard to know what exactly you would drop.
Tay would like one of them.
No, Tay's got Crass.
Tay's got Crest, but like I just don't like Blissey. So everything in tier 3 can be replaced by literally anything on Tay's team, and I will support it. I'll be like, yeah, Tay, good transaction.
I'm not really sold on Cresselia on this team, so if he got rid of something like Blissey for one of these Trick Room setters and then got some other really high value tier 2 in place of Cresselia, I would be super down for that.
I would actually super like that.
Yeah. I can see one of these being good for Dark too. Dark and Toxic, I think, were the two main people who I thought needed maybe one of like a lower tier dedicated Trick Room setter. Because right now, Toxic's only Trick Room setter is the Necrozma, and Dark's only Trick Room setter is the Victini. So
Carbink.
Oh, right, Carbink. Yeah, that's a little. It's a weird one. So I guess Toxic probably needs one more than Dark does, but might be good for Dark too. I don't know if you need both Fungus and Pincurchin. So maybe one of those slots could be a Trick Room setter. I just think if the situation is too dangerous for Carbink, I just feel like using Victini as a Trick Room setter is really not optimal, or in Toxic's case, using Necrozma as your Trick Room setter, because then you can't bring your big tier 1 as part of a fast mode along with a Trick Room option in the same group of 6.
Well, the thing with Dark's team, I think he's not wanting to set Trick Room. He really has Fungus and Pincurchin to say, hey, you don't want to set Trick Room.
Yeah, and that's fair too. That's a legitimate strategy. Not every team needs a Trick Room mode of its own. But some Trick Room deterrence like that can be good, especially for something like Fungus, because it doubles as just a redirector. It doesn't have to always just
the thing is,
Spore.
You don't need a Trick Room setter, I don't think that's required for a team, but goddamn, Slowking and Slowbro are still on the board. And like it's hard to not justify someone having those, Like I think those are pretty big. That's actually not my big one in tier 3 though. We'll get to that.
Yes, we will. Any final thoughts on these Trick Room setters?
No, they're all solid. If any of these get picked up, we're not surprised.
Yeah, for sure. I would say that aside from the water type slow boys, my favorite remaining Trick Room setters are probably Musharna and Dusknoir. So
I just want to see Oranguru do something.
Oh,
I have
too.
faith in it. I just want to see it do something.
Yeah, I do too.
Inner Focus Trick Room.
It's really, really good.
Inner Focus Trick Room. It's very good.
Yeah.
Next up, not something that I'm surprised to see undrafted, but something I kind of wanted to highlight a little bit. Alakazam. Do you guys have any strong feelings about Alakazam?
This Mon probably has the worst freaking track record in this league. It literally started in tier 2 for the longest time. We're like, dude, why? We drop it to tier 3 and still nobody's looking at it.
Yeah, I think once Expanding Force existed, we everybody kind of just looked at, well, what's the most what's the fast offensive psychic type that can abuse this the most? And in the beginning of VGC Series 5, everybody was like, oh, Psy-Spam with Alakazam, and people used it for a couple weeks and
just go Blacephalon.
Figured out it's not that good.
It offers way more.
Or just Azelf or whatever. There's a lot of mons that do it.
Well, Zelf has Levitate, so it can't do that. But,
oh, right. There's a mon. Anyway, yeah.
Well, there's plenty of psychic types around, but
there's not a shortage. Oh my god.
Yeah. Alakazam just seems like it's just got really solid offensive stats, being the speed and special attack, not the attack stats.
Anything else?
But no, I mean obviously it's a glass cannon, but the 120 speed is very solid. It even gets some support options. it's a little bit weird to try to draft a team with Alakazam, because usually if you got something like an Indeedee, you're also going to want like a high tier expanding force abuser like the Necrozma, for example. It's a great pair. So if you're going to go for Alakazam, you got to go for something like, maybe something like Ryan had, like Indeedee Moltres last season, right? Something that's a team where you want your psychic type to be one of the lower tier things, but even then, if Ryan, if you had it, it would be overlapping with the Slow King, so might right. Still be a little weird. So I think it's a cool mon. Not surprised to see it on the board. I want to. It kind of like the Oranguru. I want to see somebody do something with it. That's all.
Well, yeah, and tier 3 being the biggest tier you can draft out of. Most people are looking for their glue pieces.
Yeah,
Alakazam's not a glue piece.
Right. Yeah.
It's literally the opposite of.
I figure in some cases, maybe since we have an extra tier 3 slot this season, maybe.
Maybe.
Maybe everybody's accustomed to getting everything they need out of just 3 tier 3 slots, and for some people, the last one is kind of a, do whatever the fuck you want pick.
Yeah.
So I could see Alakazam going in that type of situation, but obviously that's not what happened. But I'd like to see somebody do something with it at some point. It seems like a fun mon. Excuse me.
Next up, we have Butterfree and Tangela.
Yes.
Tangela is the one that I will put money on. Should be on Dina's team, except instead of the War Turtle. And I would be 100% for it, and I will think her team is honestly better with it. There are no ground resists or immunities. Get a Tangela.
Interesting. We did not talk about this before the recording, but I was going to tell her the exact same thing.
Yeah, like, you already have your Follow Me user in the Raichu. Are you really going to bring War Turtle to do anything beside the Raichu? No. Get something. Get a ground resist, please. Please, for the love of all that I am, get a ground resist.
Yeah, I think that would make plenty of sense if we want to dive into what would work on specific teams, because she ended up drafting the War Turtle first and didn't. Raichu wasn't on her radar at the time, so since she went in that direction, I think it makes sense to patch up something else that doesn't jive as well with the direction she took in the later part of the draft.
Yeah, well, the War Turtle was actually a snipe for me, so I know where she was coming from with it, because it does fit really, really well with the Melmetal, because fire moves are usually special, and Melmetal doesn't have the greatest special defense, so I understand why she grabbed it. But looking at the comp now as a whole, I do think Tangela just fits better, and honestly, I think it's the only team that really would benefit from Tangela. Because everybody else usually mostly has their Follow Me user, and Rage Powder is a little bit weird. But on a team like that, you're not going to want to just tech a random safety goggles, because you need a lot of other items to fix a lot of other things when you go against her.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, I think, interestingly enough, Rage Powder may have even gotten a buff with all these extra Follow Me users, because having a Follow Me user enables you to use Rage Powder with
more freely.
Yeah, with much more safety against potential safety goggles, because if you're going up against a team with Follow Me and Rage Powder, you're not just going to tech safety goggles and like, well, I hope he doesn't click Follow Me, and
right.
So I think in that sense, this transfer moves actually give Rage Powder a bit of a buff, even though I don't think we have any extra Rage Powder users here.
No, and there's not too many high tier grass types you're really worried about either, other than maybe Rillaboom.
Yeah, Rillaboom, Venusaur, maybe a
I don't even think
if somebody takes that.
Yeah, I don't think Dina plays either of those. So
right. What about
that's
Butterfree?
That's my TED talk. I don't care about Butterfree.
I care about Butterfree. I love Butterfree.
Butterfree is cool. I don't really think any team particularly wants it, but
supportively, it's probably one of the better Rage Powder users, because it does also get that super accurate and decently fast because you're probably going to scarf it. Sleep powders. But man, outside of that, holy crap! I tried using Butterfree. I think in season 2, and it was rough. It really was like a stray rock slide, and you're going down. And a lot of teams do not like looking at rock slides.
Yeah, fair enough. I think Butterfree could be kind of a cool mon to slot into like a tier 3 slot that maybe you don't know what to do with, kind of like I was talking about where Alakazam might fit. Mostly because like it's an extra redirector, that's nice, but if you have like a really solid max airstream sweeper, I love Butterfree next to those. When you're boosting up, like especially if you have something especially offensive that's going to really reliably pick up KOs, you can put Butterfree next to it, kill something with max airstream. Butterfree gets super, super fast. Don't even need to run a scarf on it. You can put a sash. And then you just sleep powder the thing that's still alive. And it's especially nice against opposing grass types because you can just airstream into the grass type and then sleep powder the other thing pretty safely. So I like that a lot. I have yet to draft Butterfree myself, but one day I will. It's a cool mon. Next up, Morgrim. Let's tackle the last two prankster users at the same time. Actually, Morgrim and Cottony. Ryan, you wanna tackle this one?
Okay. Cottony was probably supposed to be in tier 2. I voted it for tier 2.
100%.
I was looking at it my entire draft, trying to desperately see if I could get it to fit my team. I ultimately picked Persian over it, and I still don't know if that was correct, and I really fucking like Persian. Okay. Cottony gets the same move pool as Whimsicott with transfer, period, including Tailwind. This is a priority Tailwind setter, priority fake tiers, priority all the good stuff that Whimsicott gets. The main issue it has is that it is made of more paper than Whimsicott is. So
you're running both of them with a sash anyway.
You'll just die a lot, and it doesn't. Unlike Whimsicott, where you can really output some nice damage with like Energy Ball or Moonblast, Cottony can't do that shit, and it's huge taunt bait for other prankster mons that are faster than it. But holy shit! Priority Tailwind in tier 3, priority fake tiers in tier 3, all on one mon. And
there are a lot of teams that really want some speed control.
Yeah, it's Cottony. If you have a tier 3 that you don't like and you go, I don't know, maybe Cottony, you should probably pick Cottony, because if Persian pisses me off 1 week, I'm taking it. And that is not an exaggeration. I literally messaged Matt after the draft and went, yes, Cottony is undrafted. How in the fuck? This is actually my biggest shock, is Cottony. I think Cottony was the thing I was most surprised to see undrafted. To me, it was obviously pretty much the best thing in tier 3 and should have been tier 2, and no one even touched it.
Yeah, I think when when you messaged me after the draft, I'm not sure I even realized that Cottony went undrafted until you said something. I guess I just, I don't know, assumed that it went somewhere, because it's a priority Tailwind in tier 3. That's pretty good. I disagree. I don't think that it should be tier 2. I can totally see the argument for it. I get it. But I think
now hang on, Matt. I'm gonna call you bullshit on this one. Last season, you wanted Purloin and Lipard in the same tier. This is the same example. Cottony and Whimsicott are the same mon except the offensive presence.
Yeah, and Whimsicott's faster, so it's better into other prankster mons. And it has more offensive presence. But yeah, I mean, Cottony does have its weaknesses over Whimsicott. It's more taunt bait, it's fake out bait, in an even bigger way than Whim is somehow. It doesn't have any offensive presence whatsoever, and it's much slower than other prankster mons, but holy shit, I don't even care.
Yeah, I just was checking out its base stats. 37 base special attack. That's
Oh yeah, it's bad.
that's some power
it's
right there.
unusable. It's unusable.
For the record, I was not looking to put Lipard and Purloin in the same tier. I wanted them. I wanted Purloin one tier below Lipard. I think we ended up having it two below, which I disagreed with.
Hey, real quick, one thing people don't understand about Cottony and Whimsicott is it Nature's Gift is actually a status move that does damage based on the terrain.
Yeah, it's really funny. I've seen. Did you ever see that draft game where someone did like priority nature? No, it was a regional. Someone had Nature's Gift Whimsicott with electric terrain.
Nature power.
Yeah, with nature power with electric terrain. Oh, it was so funny. I don't remember what regional that was, but it was like one of the coolest things I've ever seen.
I think that was on.
It was back in Gen 7.
I think the winning Worlds team had that in 2017. I think it was a.
I think it was that one.
I think it was nature power on maybe both Whimsicott and Coco, because the team also had Tapu Fini, so I think you could actually use Moonblast on Coco with that.
Yeah. Yep. But yeah, just a little side note. You could proc some weird stuff in terrain.
All right.
Morgrim, yeah.
Yeah, Morgrim, Cottony kind of stole the spotlight there a little bit, which is fair. It's, it's better than Morgrim, even though they're in the same tier. Morgrim still deserves to be up here because it's a good mon. We don't need to go into what it does. You know all of the Grimmsnarl stuff. It has virtually all of that, just without the offense. You're just relying on foul play for your offense. But I mean, I think those are the last two prankster options here, and Morgrim is a damn good one. Especially being dark and fairy type. You can tech something like a dazzling gleam on it. Its special attack is actually higher than its physical attack. So, fairy type is just nice for pranksters because you can't hit opposing dark types with your prankster stuff. So you have a stab super effective move to hit them with, and you're also dark type on Morgrim, so you yourself are immune to opposing prankster stuff. So that's always nice. Morgrim just has a lot of tools that can really get your team going. Fake tiers especially, that might be the most significant one, and it's a decent fake out user, so very significant leftover mon there. Not much more to say other than that. Maxwell, you are our resident luchador. How do you feel about Hawlucha still being on the board here?
This Hawlucha is the Hawlucha that I thought I was drafting last season.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
Short of Prankster Tailwind, this is the fastest Tailwind you're going to get if you have a terrain team, because it actually does have Tailwind now. And it's just a solid mon. Like, I used it, and it didn't have the Tailwind usage that I thought it would when I originally drafted it, but I didn't drop it for specific reasons. If this thing is in any kind of terrain, it is a monster. I know 91 isn't the best physical attack stat, but when you're launching off close combats and brave birds, you're gonna do sizable damage. And then when it's in terrain, you do get all the speed boosts that you want with the Tailwind, and hell, you could even set it up. It does get Swords Dance. Like, it's a solid Pokemon. Any terrain team that needs speed control, you need to look at Hawlucha.
It's also very usable as a weakness policy, Maxmon.
Yeah.
Probably Cottony aside, this is probably one of the better Tailwind setters still on the board. We could talk about Aerodactyl too. A little bit surprised that's still here, just given how fast it is and does not require terrain, unlike Hawlucha. But Hawlucha is still very significant given how many terrain teams we have. Like, I mean, shit, dude, almost half these teams ended up with terrain. We've got Coco, we got triple psychic terrain, we've got a Rillaboom, we've got a Tapu.
Well, what is it? Is it Bulu and the Weezings are the only terrains that didn't get actually drafted?
I believe so.
There's another Rillaboom too, but yeah.
Well, I mean,
yeah. So, Weezing, not too surprised about. Not something I planned on discussing. Nobody's gonna be using Misty Terrain if you have a Weezing anyway. So, Yeah, one of the better Tailwind setters here. We could toss in Aerodactyl with that too. Obviously, we already talked about Cottony. That's those are probably your best bets if you're looking for tier 3 Tailwind right now. Pikachu, I believe, is the last Follow Me user in tier 3. Is that correct?
I
Should be.
think so. I mostly just want to see Fat Pikachu in a game.
Yeah.
But it's also Lightning Rod Follow Me.
And Fake Out.
And Fake Out.
Decently
like,
fast
I got
Fake
right.
Out.
I got Raichu. Pikachu was on my list of potential backups. Like, if I ended up not wanting a tier 2 electric, which I almost always do because I love electric types, but if I had actually decided to go down a tier, I was considering Pikachu. I think it's generally very solid. It's got base 90 speed, I believe.
Yeah.
So it's pretty quick. It's like a quick fake out user, and it's got fast. It's got priority follow me. It's got lightning rod, and its Gmax form is hilarious and will paralyze you. So,
Are there any support moves that Raichu gets that this doesn't?
I don't believe so. Raichu, I think, might get Sing, and
Pikachu does
might
too.
not.
No, Pikachu does now. Yeah.
Oh, it
but
does
you know
now.
what,
Okay, that's kind of sick.
You can't use Sing and Follow Me on the same set, so Sing is kind of useless when we have transfer moves.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm looking at the move pool right now because I'm curious. Yeah, no, they're the same. That's the Raichu move pool I've been looking at for prepping the next couple weeks.
Yeah. So if you need a Lightning Rod user that functions like Raichu, here you go.
Yeah, it's pretty good. Like, and also Light Ball Pikachu gets like actually calcs. Like, you would need
offensively, it's
you
better
need,
than Raichu.
Yeah, you need double redirection to make it happen, but Gmax Pikachu is like with Light Ball can actually kill stuff. It's not like good compared to like whatever your tier 1 is probably, but like it becomes an option. So
Yo, hang on. Does this thing actually unlock Hector's team?
yes.
You have You now have triple redirection if you want to drop it for the Togedemaru, but like,
And you keep your lightning rod. Yeah, I mean, I see it. I think I probably like Togedemaru here a little bit better.
I do as well. I just think it's funny.
Oh, sure. I was actually thinking about this Pikachu maybe in place of Pincurchin on Dark's team. He doesn't have Follow
that
Me.
would be interesting.
It would add some Follow Me to his Rage Powder. He still has the Fungus as the Trick Room counter. And I think you have a more dedicated Lightning Rod user because it's hard not to run Electric Terrain on Pincurchin. That Rising Voltage, like, its stats are not great, but the Rising Voltage does a fuck ton of damage.
Granted, then you're kind of negating Slurpuff.
Yeah, I mean, that could be part of a longer-term plan. You could drop Slurpuff for something else at a later date. I don't think Slurpuff is very good with Pincurchin anyway. It's okay with After You, but it's still pretty underwhelming to me. I think there are, even with Pincurchin here, I think there are better things you could fill that Slurpuff slot with from Tier 3, so...
Maybe, yeah.
I think I might like to see the Pikachu on Dark's team. Moving on, we've got Scrafty and Hitmontop.
Just Hitmontop. I think you're the only one who likes Scrafty.
Yeah, I don't like Scrafty.
I think Hitmontop is the exclusive decision there.
Just get Pangoro at a bottom tier.
Well, no, I mean, nobody can now.
I mean, there's a reason I grabbed Pangoro.
Yeah, because it's better.
Yeah, Hitmontop is clearly the better of the two, but, you know, Scrafty still has kind of the same niche. Has a couple other things you can do with it. You can run Dragon Dance for some reason on Scrafty with Moxie.
But like Hitmontop just offers so much. Wide guard, fake out, quick guard, decent offensive stat, really bulky.
Got a lot of good proc moves too for weakness
only
policies.
a fighting type, not quad weak to fairy.
Yes. Yeah, Hitmontop I think is a really nice support piece that do you think anybody could use something like a Hitmontop? It's actually decently valuable down here in Tier 3.
See, I think a lot of people could. I mean, there's a reason Hitmontop usually finds its way in like GS style formats.
Yeah.
It just super, super good. I don't think with the tier 3 slot being mostly your glue pieces, I don't think anybody's really going to struggle to find a place for it.
Yeah, no.
It's
I
just
really
do they
liked on
want it?
Tay's team.
Which team?
Tay's, actually.
Mm.
And not like as a meme this time, like last time. Like, I actually like Hitmontop on Tay's team quite a bit.
Actually, yeah. I mean, he's got some really solidly bulky type
And
cores up top. So
And it supports those well, like,
Yeah,
I think.
yeah.
Like, it's really good to have the, like, Hitmontop next to Volcarona, like, can prevent rock slides and, like,
Yep. There's
gives
your
that
Blissey
Volcarona
change.
that. Yeah, and it helps with that kind of low physical defense stat that it's got, you know. I actually think that would be a really solid pick for him.
yeah, I mean, I think it was back in like Gen 5 VGC. Hitmontop Volcarona used to be a very popular pair. They called it Top Moth.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
It's really, yeah, I know. I've used it before. I
Yeah.
like it. I think it's good. There's a couple other teams. It'd be really annoying on Dan's team. I don't think he'd do it, but it would be annoying.
No, yeah, he doesn't want another fighting type.
Yeah, I
No.
don't think so.
But it would be annoying. I would be pissed when I have to play him.
I do like it on Tay's team though. It seems good there, either for the Blissey or the Luxray if he doesn't want double intimidate.
if we get rid of the War Turtle for the Tangela on Dina's team, but if she's like, hey, I don't want that, but I want Raichu redirection and I don't want Tangela, Hitmontop actually seems like a good fit for instead of the War Turtle.
Interesting. Okay.
I can dig that.
Gotta have that ground resist.
Well, yeah, but you know, most ground types are physical, so you get Intimidate, and you have Wide
Yeah.
Guard for that Earthquake. People will be clicking. It does a little bit of help.
I guess.
I think that
Not
would help
enough.
a little bit more, like in Gen 6 before everything got like Stomping Tantrum and high horsepower.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's
yeah,
fair.
100%.
Yeah. All right, moving on to our last tier 3, Gastrodon.
Just like Series 9, this thing, or just like Series 7, this thing got power crept out of existence.
it
And
did,
there's not high water types.
It did, but at the same time, Cradilly got drafted and Gastrodon didn't. That has me scratching my head a little bit.
Yeah, that one is a little weird. Granted, they do have different weaknesses.
Of course. Yeah.
You know, Cradilly doesn't have the quad to grass. But like Gastrodon's not really doing much offensively anymore. And like I said, there's not really high tier water types that actually got drafted this go around. And if you do have one, they offer ways to actually hit the Gastrodon. So and not a lot of your main sweepers are really weak to water anymore. If you look at the top tier ones, maybe 2 of them. And that's your water team and Noah, or that's your sand team and Noah and Victini.
I think the ground typing could still be worth it though. I mean, with all these extra steel types, like the Melmetal, Jirachi, that kind of stuff, Gastrodon can definitely help with that. Especially given that Melmetal's got a piece of shit special defense stat.
Base 60, baby.
Yeah. So, Gastrodon is something that I typically like to tier a little bit higher. I think it ended up in tier 3 last season too, and I think this season it's more understandable. Last season I definitely would have liked to see it in tier 2. It's Storm Drain is very scarce compared to Lightning Rod, especially. We've seen plenty of Lightning Rod users drafted, but Gastrodon and Cradilly, I think, are really the only ones on the board, unless you want to go for a not fully evolved kind of mon. So,
Maractus, baby.
Oh yeah, I forgot that existed. Yeah, we don't need to talk about Maractus. But
ain't that right, Johnny boy?
That match.
Gastrodon,
I lost years of my life watching that. I have gray hairs now. It's a problem. I'm not even 24 yet.
Anyway, Gastrodon, good mon. Storm Drain scarce. A little bit surprised not to see it drafted. It usually goes drafted in this league, so a little bit surprised to see that. But it's there if anybody wants to pick it up. Let's finish this off going through a few of these tier 4s. One of the most notable ones on my list, I thought, was Behem. Mostly
Yeah.
because it's really it's probably your best bet if you want a tier 4 Trick Room setter.
Yeah.
Like I always thought that if you took like 10 or 20 points out of Behemoth's speed and just put it in bulk, it would be tier 3. It's
no, it would be. That's correct.
Yeah, it's a setter and a
par
sweep
with
all in
Reuniclus.
one. Yeah.
Yeah, it would be on par with Reuniclus.
Yeah, I think it'd probably be even a little bit better than Reuniclus, mostly because of
honestly,
its-
analytics.
It's
Funny.
coverage.
Yeah, move pool's a lot better. God, Reuniclus is. Anyway, we'll ignore that.
Yeah, that one's pretty straightforward. Not really much to say about that. Any additional thoughts on Behemoth before we move on?
No, I think
it's one of the
best tier fours, though.
Oh yeah, it's one of the tier 4s that if it was in tier 3, it probably still wouldn't have been drafted, but like it would fit in tier 3.
Yeah.
It's a solid mon. It's super frail to set Trick Room with, so you definitely need support around it. But once you get Trick Room up, the damn thing can sweep in Trick Room itself.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which we saw. We did that in the High Roller League, especially in some mocks. Yeah, it's good.
Yeah, for sure. Fletchinder and Fletchling. These are kind of like Cottony in tier 3. These are your priority tailwind setters in tier 4. Although there's good reason they're not in the same tier as the Cottony, because Gale Wings is a little bit less reliable than the Prankster tailwind.
Oh yeah,
we did see Fletchinder have a little bit of success with John's team last season.
I was about to say,
yeah.
he sold me on Fletchinder. Like, I remember when he first drafted it, I was like, what is Johnny doing? And then like he started using it, and like it was one of his MVPs last season. Like he did really, really well with that mon. I was very impressed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's the feint, especially like Maxwell just said, it's really cool extra piece to add to that thing, because it's not really it's at a very high risk of just setting Tailwind and then doing nothing. But feint allows it to have some a little bit of extra utility and offensive support.
Yeah, also it does give you a weird niche in priority Peck to proc some different policies.
Yeah.
Some policies that you usually can't proc. It does give you some weird ones there with Peck.
Fletchinder Halucha.
Oh, yeah. Well, I was saying any fighting type, honestly, because you don't really have a priority proc for fighting.
Yeah, it's pretty much just like Gale Wings or Comfey. That's kind of it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Moving on, we've got Espeon. This thing was tier 3 last season and got drafted. Didn't really get used.
I don't think she brought it once.
She brought it in team preview once.
Okay.
Never hit the field, unfortunately, but there was a plan for it. It's, I think, just stat wise, I think it's a high value tier 4. I think it can work on almost any team. Maybe use it as like a backup Psy Spam kind of mon on any of the Psychic Terrain teams. It's got some interesting support options. It's got the speed to use them effectively. It's a little bit hard to use, but I think mostly that's just because it was tiered a little bit higher. I like it in tier 4 in this kind of power creepy sort of format, because it's one of those mons that I thought was actually probably too good for its tier. But it very rarely gets drafted and or used when it's up a tier. So, and honestly, Dina actually picked it up kind of almost by mistake last time, because she drafted the female Meowstic thinking that it was the Prankster version, and she just swapped it out for a better offensive Psychic type, and it just kind of sat there until she got Articuno, and then it actually kind of worked with like. With a max Articuno mode, which was what she was planning when she brought it the one time, but we didn't end up seeing it, unfortunately. But I think it's a good.
Matt, did it move down a tier? Or did it just not move? Because we don't have a tier 5.
Well, it was in tier 3 last time.
Was it? Okay.
Yeah. So
not only did we delete a tier, but we also moved it down.
Yeah. So, which is a part of why I thought it was a little bit too much to move it down here. But, This is kind of one of the themes of this this tier list, which we've touched on quite a few times, is moving stuff down, even though we think it's too powerful for the tier we're moving it into, just because it never gets used. So
if you're looking to finish your fighting dark psychic core, it's definitely a good option in tier 4 where there's a lot of hot garbage.
Yeah.
Hear me out. There's one that's better, but we'll get there.
Oh my god.
I feel you. I do. But yes, we will get there. Let's move on to the pranksters in tier 4. We got Impidimp and Purloin.
Purloin being clearly better than Impidimp. Impidimp does kind of struggle with some of the more supporty options that Grimmsnarl and Morgrim gets. But
also Morgrim just is still undrafted, so
yeah.
Just grab Morgrim.
Impidimp also, I think, does not have screens.
No, its support pool is very much so smaller.
Yeah. But Purloin down here is great value.
Oh, 100%.
Oh yeah, it is.
I personally, I think Purloin should have been tier 3 again, because it's oh no, Lightpart is in tier 3. Never mind, Purloin's fine here. Yeah, Purloin Purloin in particular, Impidimp kind of also, but Purloin really just it's a gem down here in this tier. It's very similar to Lightpart, just with a slower fake out, which is rather significant. It also kind of demands a focus sash. I mean, so does Lightpart, but less so. You can put a little bit of bulk into Lightpart, especially if you want to slap a seed on it and go for unburden stuff, which I think we're probably going to see at least once or twice on Toxic's team.
Does this thing also get Copycat?
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure it has the exact same support move pool as Lightpart,
I think it does.
I think especially with transfer, giving a lot of those NFE mons better move pools.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So not much more to say about it. It's just, I mean, it's very obviously one of the highest value things in tier 4.
Yeah.
Great move pool. Prankster by itself is just wild. Like, somebody fucking take the Purloin, man.
Oh yeah. Why is Regice on this list?
Dude, Regice. Okay, Ryan, do you have some stuff to say about Regice? Because I got some stuff to say about Regice.
I wrote also Bull Ryan because Regice is such a fucking meme, but it is actually pretty good for tier 4. Like
it is, yeah.
There's another.
Isn't it 130 special defense?
Here's
it's 200 special defense.
Okay. Oh shit!
It has 200. It's a Reggie. So it has to have 50 base HP and 200 special defense with the worst defensive typing in the game. But because fuck Game Freak, I guess. Now, yes, this is a good ice type. There is another tier 4 ice type that is better, that also went undrafted. That is also related to the better psychic type that went undrafted.
Gee, I wonder what it is.
But it's not bad. Regice actually legitimately seems like it has a pretty good use to help shore up a Trick Room mode potentially. And it legitimately, offensively, Bolt Beam coverage is quite strong.
Yeah.
Especially for tier 4. There's not a lot of things that can really handle that. And if you, happen to have a Trick Room mode where you can somehow proc a policy on it, it actually, will sweep. And Clear Body is a really good ability in the Max format. So,
I mean, we have it in tier 4, but not naming names. Regice is in tier 1 in other leagues.
Yeah. It was for a season. I have been very mean about that in the past. No, it's not. They figured it out. They down.
Okay. I had to take my jabs when I can.
It's where enough. It should be, I believe, or it better be, or I'm gonna actually just write the Magna Carta of why Regice isn't a tier 1, but we'll get there.
I actually think you can make a decent case for Regice being a tier 3 here.
I agree.
Mm-hmm.
It's just it's another one of those mons that if nobody ever fucking drafts it, so move it down. Not that we moved it; it's always been in tier 4, just nobody's drafted it.
And we just deleted tier 5.
Right. So it's, which I guess is sort of like moving it down. It's in the bottom tier now, whereas last time it wasn't quite. But yeah, I mean, I think kind of like Glastrier, if you can just pick up a Trick Room setter that has access to Rock Tomb, that's pretty sweet for a weakness policy Regice. It's not the best for like your dedicated Trick Room mode because it's got a 50 base speed, so it's more like a Trick Room option against maybe a faster mode that your opponent has. But yeah, I mean, if you can get this thing set up, if you have the team for it, fucking go for it, man. I don't know that I've ever really had a team that fits Regice and actually has room for it.
No one ever will.
Yeah, I feel the same way. It's like you either build a team that works with Regice because you have Glastrier, and then you like, well, why would you pick Regice because you already have Glastrier? So there's I don't know, maybe if you have like Musharna as your Trick Room setter with like a more dedicated sweeper, then you can just fill a random tier 4 slot with a Regice. That might be kind of cool because Clear Body with like a decent special attack stat, bolt beam coverage, like Ryan said. It even has flash cannon too, so when you're maxing it, you can shore up your physical defense stat.
Yeah, which is awful.
So
all right, we've talked too much about Regice. Let's move.
You cannot talk too much about Regice. It's awesome.
My God.
It should be tier 1. Okay, moving on. Rapidash. This is something that I wanted to touch on a little bit. I want to talk about both Rapidashes a little bit, but mostly Kanto Rapidash. I actually have like if you look at Rapidash's stats, like they're actually pretty decent for a tier 4, for an offensive tier 4. I think it can actually be like a decent addition to a Firewater Grass Core if you need something with like a little bit of offense and speed. 100 base attack is, it's fine, it's usable. You might need to like put a Life Orb or a Choice Band on it once in a while. It's probably not going to be your max option, but 105 base speed is pretty good. It actually gets like some pretty decent coverage. Stuff like Wild Charge, Mega Horn, Poison Jab, High Horsepower. It's kind of a good mon. I think there are some teams that are maybe lacking in the fire typing that we've we mentioned a little bit earlier that could very easily afford a Kanto Rapidash, considering that like I think a lot of tier 4 slots are kind of just filler slots anyway. Like most,
it's better than Sharpedo.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, I like Sharpedo a lot, like in maybe a non-max format, because Speed Boost Destiny Bond is kind of insane, but it's a little bit weirder in a max format, just less consistent. So you can still try it as like a late game thing after your opponent's max is over, I guess. But we're not here to talk about Sharpedo. It's Rapidash time. Although I guess I've pretty much exhausted everything I wanted to say. I think it's more solid than people give it credit for in tier 4. What do you guys think about good old Firehorse?
I've never really looked at it, mostly because I usually prioritize drafting a fire type a little higher.
Yeah, I think most people do. Makes sense.
But, I mean, it's decent. It's got better attacking stats than most other tier 4s, and it's got a better speed stat than most other tier 4s.
Yeah, I think 105 speed in tier 4 is it's hard to come by.
Yeah, and I think it goes for both of them as well. It just depends what kind of coverage you want, but I have faith if someone wants to draft it. I'm not gonna bash you for it because I think it's a decent mon. Most teams usually have what it does ironed out before it gets to where you're looking at tier 4s.
Yeah, it does do really well. There's this really fun set you can run. It's called Blunder Policy.
Yes.
You run it with Hypnosis and then Horn Drill, and then you pray. You just click Hypnosis every turn, and then when you land those, then you click Horn Drill, and then you just go, RNGesus, take the wheel, and you scream into the void as you play Pokemon. It's pretty much the most viable Pokemon in the game, so that's really my opinion.
Yeah, Hypnosis Blunder Policy is a steal in tier 4. Somebody take it For fuck's sake. Both Rapid Ashes can do that. Just take it.
Oh my god.
All right. Tiny redirectors. We've still got some redirection undrafted here. Not too surprising that these are the ones that are still on the board. They're the ones that pretty much demand a focus sash, like kind of all the time. Togepi and Pikachu Togepi, Pichu, and Squirtle. These are
Is
pretty.
Pichu the best of those three?
I mean, maybe it's got Fake Out and Lightning Rod. I mean, Squirtle has Fake Out too, I guess. But Pichu is also definitely the most frail of the three. Which doesn't necessarily matter because you want to put a focus sash on these most of the time. But
15 base defense. Fuck yeah.
Yeah. I think this might come as a bit of a surprise to some people, but Togepi and Squirtle maybe sometimes can actually use an Eviolite.
Eviolite, yeah, I can.
I think personally, most of the time you're gonna want a sash on them more so than an Eviolite just for consistency, because I feel like you have to get them like as bulky as you really need them to be. You have to invest almost everything in like one of the defensive stats, and then your other one is a little too shaky for my taste. But I was talking to Jamie Boyd in the High Roller chat a few days ago, and he had mentioned he had Togepi in another league, and he ended up running Eviolite on it more often than Sash, which came as a surprise to me. But I assume the guy knows what he's doing. He's been rather successful in this game, so you can do that. But Focus Sash is pretty often going to be necessary in my opinion, especially for that Pichu. That's
Does Magby and Electrike or whatever it's called not get it?
No, they don't, because
so they transferred with.
Yeah, because it's like Gale of Darkness or some shit is where they get Follow Me from.
Yeah, the Magmar and the Electivire, or the Magmar and Electabuzz come from Gen 3 with Follow Me, and oh wait, no, those existed in Gen 3. Yeah, I guess you just got they just gave you Magmar and Electabuzz instead of the baby forms. So
okay,
yeah.
So
not much to say about that. If you're desperate for a Follow Me user, maybe you're somebody that like only has Rage Powder and you don't give a shit about one of your tier 4s because hey, they're tier 4s. Pick up one of these boys. They're still here.
Honestly, though, if you look at the list of coaches, all the tier 4s that were drafted are all mostly solid.
Yeah, I think I think most people did better than maybe in previous seasons with our bottom tier. There's still some that like, they're kind of meh. I mean, like I'm not super sold on like Aurorus. We talked a little bit about Shedinja. Ryan kind of convinced me that Shedinja with Victini is not great. Even though it is a Shadow Sneak proc, you can do that, but the synergy isn't really there. You want
it's not there.
Not sharing weaknesses with it. Some other stuff like Turtonator I'm not really sold on. I don't feel like it counts as Frost Fire type. I don't really see what the hell Poliwrath is doing on Gumi's team. Like,
I love Poliwrath. Fuck off.
Listen,
Also, don't remember.
You might not be sold on Aurorus, but when there's a shit ton of weather in your division,
yeah, I'm sold on Aurorus. And hey, Johnny got some really insane games with Aurorus, so if you can just tap into his energy, I think it'll be fine.
John's energy
which is hard.
Not easy to tap into.
No,
unless you're John.
No, and just they're great if you need a redirector, but honestly, looking at the tier 4s drafted, you're going to be hard pressed to say, yeah, I need this over what I got.
Right, you're going to be more hard pressed to say, Regice, that'd be fucking right now. But I don't even remember having that Shedinja conversation. I guess I was smart once. I get one a year, I guess. All right, next month.
I mean,
Matt, this is your pick. Wishy Washy.
Oh yeah, okay. Wishy Washy. I think there's still a note attached to it here. 2 OP, please ban. Yeah, that was probably me. I still agree with that. Wishy Washy should not be on the tier list at all. It should be banned. It is 2 OP. For real, it's one of the highest value things in tier 4.
Yeah, it is.
It's just look at the. You know what? Okay, I'm gonna pull this shit up now. I've been on the wishy-washy train for a while. It should be tier 3. For some reason it's not. But look at these base stats. I get that it's not always in its school form, but you can stay there decently consistently. HP's low, but who gives a shit? You got 130 and 135 on the defenses. You got 30 base speed. That's fantastic for a Trick Room sweeper. And you can go physical or special. Either way, you got 140 on your base attack or special attack. It's 620 BST with us and that's not even being held up by its speed stat at all. It's got a shit speed, which is great for Trick Room, and your stats are insane. And then after your schooling form is done, if you get down into the 25% HP range,
Endeavor bitches.
you can it gets Endeavor. Slap Endeavor on it. It's the one thing you can knock it for. Well, not the one thing, but one thing you can knock it for is that its coverage isn't that great. You're mostly going to be using like water, ice, maybe ground. I don't think it gets all that much more. I guess
Not
U-turn.
particularly. It gets Iron Tail, so you can like Steel Spike.
That's a
which is
decent
great.
Steel Spike, yeah. But like if you don't really need much coverage, if you're just kind of like water and ice go burr, then you can slap on, assuming you have protecting, slap on Endeavor in that last move slot. Pretty good.
Okay, Matt, hear me out. Should Gumi draft it over Poliwrath?
Oh fuck yeah! Hell yes!
Yeah, I agree.
Gumi, take the goddamn fish. Take the big fish, please.
Should Dina
Okay,
take it over Kingdra or Kingler?
Well, maybe. I mean, she's got enough.
Kingler has
stuff.
sheer force. Kingler has sheer force crap hammer, so like, that's pretty strong. Anyway, here's the thing. I like Poliwrath a lot, but Wishy Washy might be the objectively correct choice. But Gumi, I stand by your decision.
I do too. I definitely don't like Wishy Washy.
It's just kind of like, like the problem I have with Wishy Washy is that since Game Freak revealed Basque Legion, I was like, you've had this in your back pocket, and I could have had this in Gen 7 instead of this fucking fish. So I don't know. I'm a little upset about that.
It's tier 4 for a reason. I mean, let's be honest. It's never been drafted. Ever. I think.
One day. All right, sorry about that. We are back. We just had a little bit of technical difficulties there. Wishy Washy. Pretty much done talking about it. Just the last thing we wanted to mention was that it's a little bit hard to fit on a lot of drafts. Because you usually have some kind of good fire, water, grass core up top, so it's hard to justify an extra water type, especially if you already have a Trick Room mode kind of fleshed out. Then both of those are taken already. So
yeah, and
that's
you're using
usually
this bottom tier to fill out your typings, and you're already going to have a water type.
right. Yeah, that's usually my issue with it. All right, one last mon. Ryan, would you like to tell us about Cardio's father?
Yeah, so my boy Cardio, he's obviously better, right? Eviolite, yeah, it's just better. But his father, his old daddy, we call him Big D, Mr. Rhyme, should have been drafted. I think it's the best thing that's sitting there in tier 4. It has a really good special attack stat, like for the tier. Like, isn't it? I think Mr. Rhymes is, Mr. Rhymes is 110. It's got 100 special defense, base 80 HP, 75 defense, which is like plenty good bulk. It has Screen Cleaner's an amazing ability, by the way. The ability to just switch in and get rid of any screen support can shut down a lot of mons, like, instantly, which is super good. Ice Psychic is not the best defensive typing, but it doesn't tend to matter for Mr. Rhyme. You mostly need it on the field to click, like, Stab Icy Winds, which actually do a huge chunk of damage because it's got 110 special attack. So, like, even its, like, support sets do a ton. It's got a great move pool with a ton of good stuff in it. Ally Switch, Fake Out, Fake Tears, Helping Hand, tons. Yeah, Ice Shard procs.
Trick Room.
Yeah, it can sweep with Nasty Plot. It gets Trick Room. It gets Freeze Dry, which is a move that doesn't get a lot of distribution. That's insane. it it even gets slack off, which is crazy. It gets sucker punch, taunt, thunderwave, like the move after you. The move pool is just so good on this thing, and it can consistently perform its role. It has a consistency that you don't see in tier fours almost ever, uh, because there's just so few mons that can do what Mr. Rhyme does as well as it does, in my opinion, at least.
Yeah, two seasons ago, Tay used it really, really well.
Yeah,
in
Tay
the
had a
mix
great season
support.
with it.
Yeah, in the mix support heavy offense set, he used it very, very well.
Yeah, and I prefer Mr. Rhyme because I prefer the Eviolite defenses on Mr. Rhyme and the higher speed stat, or Mr. Mime Galler, sorry. But Mr. Rhyme is, like, not really even a downgrade. Like, they're pretty comparable. Like, outside of the lower speed stat, Mr. Rhyme makes up for that with the offensive presence that Galler lacks a little bit sometimes. It can just really accomplish its role. It can also run, like, tech berries. So, like, on Mime Galler, I think I've run Colbur Barrier, like, once or twice, but, like, by and large, like, you really can't afford to run that kind of stuff. But, like, you know, Mr. Rhyme, you can just, like, slap on whatever weakness berry you need, and it will take your hit that you need to take. Very good mon, I think. I think it's easy one of the best tier 4s here. I think that outside of maybe Behem, it's probably the best, like, just overall psychic type that's left. I think the reason it wasn't drafted is that there are a shitload of psychic types in the tier list, and in this dex in general. There is no shortage of them, so not a ton of people got to tier 4 and went, oh yeah, that psychic type, that psychic and ice typing I'm really missing.
Yeah, especially since we have so many psychic terrain teams. They're filling out their psychic types already. They don't need more.
Yeah, and it makes sense. It's just that, like, that thing has too many tools and offers too much for, I think, it to be overlooked. I was 100% going to draft Mr. Rhyme had Galler been sniped from me, which thankfully it wasn't. God bless, we love cardio. But, yeah, good mon.
Are there, Ryan, are there any teams that you might like to see Mr. Rhyme on?
So Mr. Rhyme does well on teams that, like, need fake out and just need, like, general support. I don't hate it on Jess' team if she dropped the Toxic Rogue and the Auroras. Like, if she wanted to do 2 tier 4 shifts, I think it would fit pretty well. Noah's team needs a fake out user desperately, so like Glaceon,
it's better than Glaceon.
It is,
would be good. I think Glaceon's a great Pokemon, by the way, but like Mr. Rhyme would accomplish way more than I think Glaceon could.
I mean, there's a reason last season I dropped Glaceon for Mr. Mime.
Yeah, like, let's see. I'm just kind of glancing. I don't hate it on Hector's team, but I like Appleton and Santakana G-Max a lot. I know Gumi has plans for Avalugg, so I won't say it's better there, but it probably, like,
I do like Avalugg. I'll give Gumi that. I like Avalugg.
Yeah, I like Avalugg. I hate Beartic, but whatever. People can think it's good, even though it's not. It actually looks okay on Toxic's team, but it would give him a lot of psychic types. Other than that, I think the teams that I already mentioned are the big ones. I think Noah would be the one who would get the most out of it. Glaceon's great. I don't think it's a bad mod. I think you can keep it, but I really think Fake Out's good. I think you need a Fake Out user, and this thing gives you a lot of like support utility that I think your team could like really abuse to hell and high water. So
I think Noah, if he were to drop actually both of them, and then pick up one of these small redirectors, I think would do him a lot of favors.
Yeah,
indeed. All right, well that's gonna do it for us. We'll have this up sometime Saturday. Hopefully you guys, it's a longer video than we intended, but hopefully you guys are able to consume as much of this content as possible before transactions are started. Do you guys have any final notes for the players before before week 1 transactions begin?
Not really, but if you're not in this league and you're watching this video, down in the description below, there is a Google form to fill out to hopefully make you a part of this league. So, yeah, as a spectator or a future coach.
Yes, indeed.
That's exciting. For coaches, I typically don't encourage early transactions because, personally speaking, I like to get a feel for a team before I do any transactions. But I do think a few of these suggestions are at least worth putting on your radar for potentially like week 2 or 3, just to maybe hopefully get some ideas flowing. And this really wasn't a video about transactions. This was just like for example, we were all like, "Wow, no Rotoms got drafted," but like no team really does well with Rotom. So like it was more just for fun, and it's also fun because you could easily, with I think the scraps from this team, build from this tier list, build a team that would easy get top 5 PRs with what's left over.
Oh yeah, there's so much good stuff.
There's so much good stuff sitting around, and if you theory craft a comp, you could definitely make something insane with it.
Absolutely, and I think that also speaks to how easy it might be to, even if you take something like a Rotom or like a Galarian Moltres that doesn't necessarily fit on your team with just one transaction, might actually be easy with a few more transactions to really, really make it work and make that that first transaction worth it. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see a few transactions this time in the first week or two that don't make sense initially, but make sense later. So,
yeah.
All right. So that's all we got. We will see you guys next time. Good luck for everybody still playing in week 1. Peace.